Ivan, how you doing, man?
Ty, good morning.
Good morning. It's our quarterly chat. I'm super excited about this.
Oh wow, are we up to quarterly? That's awesome.
I don't tell you that, but yeah, I basically ping you once every 3 months. It's time for you to get back on.
Well, dude, I appreciate it so much. I've loved everything you've done for years now, and so it's an honor to be on the show, and an honor to hear that it's turning into quarterly.
That's right. Cool. Well, that's all I wanted to hear you say, so we can go ahead and hang up now.
All
Okay.
right, thanks, Ty. You look
Yep.
great. We'll
Yep.
we'll talk soon.
Well, man, well, thank you for being on because you provide a great perspective on the hobby, and we're going to cover a lot of things today in our short time. We're going to talk a little bit about the Tops conference, which you were at last week,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep, in
Well,
Phoenix, Arizona,
yeah,
Tempe,
sure.
Glendale, somewhere. Oh.
Yeah. Well, we'll dig into that here in a second. We're going to cover a little bit about just the economy, how
Ooh.
it's blowing up, and how does that affect sports cards? Your perspective on that. We'll talk a little bit about Twitter toxicity. Spell that. And then we're going to talk about some
In the city,
products.
toxicity in the city.
Toxicity in the city. And then we're going to talk a little bit about products, a few that you're pretty excited about. One of them I cannot believe. I can't wait to get into.
Oh
So,
yeah,
how about
I'm
that for a
so hyped to
cliffhanger?
talk about that. But first,
But first,
a
let's
word
talk. Let's talk
from Ty.
you, yourself, your family. How are you doing? Everything good? No big news on the Ivan front. What should we know?
Yeah, everything's good. Kids are still kids. Wife is still pregnant. So we have a third kid on the way in June. So and yeah, so I've actually been clearing out quite a bit of inventory just because Ty, you saw a picture of my room without the background. When you
It's
live in an
bad.
apartment in the middle
It's
of
very
a
bad.
major city, everything ends up in the extra room. So yeah, so that's going on, which it has been fun but also challenging. But yeah, life is good, zero complaints.
Good
You know,
deal.
make the
Did
most of every day. Our due date is the middle of June, and this year's
I was
national
not going.
is like there's 0 days in August. It's like the last week of July this year.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's going to be close.
that would be close.
Have you already had that conversation with the wifey?
No, we're actually doing a birthing class that starts this Sunday. So let me get a few weeks into that, and then I should know better how to have that conversation because that's the point of the class.
There you go. The point is to have tough conversations while she's pregnant. I like it. Why are you doing a
It's to
birthing
learn.
class? You've had twins before.
Is this really what the listeners are into?
This may be cut.
Um, well, so I can totally understand this actually. Last time with twins, we weren't anticipating like because there was high risk, so we weren't necessarily anticipating natural birth, and they ended up coming really early, and so this time it's just about being a little more prepared. It's about being a better husband in the room because I can tend to be a certain type of cheerleader, and my wife may need a different type of cheerleader. And honestly, it's the least I can do to invest, 2 hours a week for a few weeks into her and listening and learning better what she needs. So,
You said all the right things. You checked all the boxes there. I'm impressed.
I mean, if you saw what she's made me for breakfast the last 3 mornings, she actually took the week off work. You'd understand why. It's worth it.
Okay.
She puts
Okay.
up with so much crap.
I can imagine. Anyone that is in the hobby, a husband that's in the hobby, the wife is guaranteed to have to put up with crap. That's a
Yeah.
given,
Yeah. I mean,
amongst other
just
things.
we've got all this stuff, you
Yeah.
know, we become stuff people.
Uh, let's talk about the Tops conference. So last week, we covered a little bit on the fly episode, just ancillary stuff that we were seeing. Give us your perspective on how it went, your expectations going in, and then kind of coming out of it. Summarize the event for us.
All right. So I don't really know that I had expectations going in.
Okay.
I try to be a blank slate. I did appreciate a lot the availability at that event that the tops executives and the incoming Fanatics team gave to people. Like you could walk up and talk to them multiple times. It was not like a crowd to talk to Josh Luber. Like you could make it happen. Now at the same time, one thing that I try to do at events like that, especially because they're focused on the hobby shop owners and the distributors, you know, these people just in order to run their businesses spend millions of dollars a year with tops. So I try not to get up and say, hey, my redemption for this, what happened to my Blake Bortles redemption that got replaced with a Malcolm Floyd and a Jarvis Landry? Like it's not really my place at those events. Yeah. But there was lots of great conversations. And my first interaction with Josh Luber was getting into an elevator, and he doesn't know me from Adam.
Yes, he does. Come on.
I really don't think so, especially because I'm like twice the man I was even 6 months ago. We talked about that. I'm working on. Got back to the gym just yesterday after that last surge, and I'm feeling good now. So
Josh Luber really inspired you. This is good. Keep
yeah.
going.
Maybe I'm a sucker. I know there's some old diehards in the hobby that say nothing changes or everybody just cares about money. I believe Josh Luber loves trading cards. I believe he's passionate about them, and I believe he's grateful and has a lot of gratitude for the responsibility and the position that he has. Just from a personal conversation with him that wasn't like, hey, let's talk about this or that. It was just hearing him. And then also from a lot of what he projects in the public meetings and the Q&As. So that said, my biggest takeaway was reiterated multiple times. I was tweeting about it. I'm sure everybody else was too. Is so much that Fanatics is focused on data. And every hobby shop owner and breaker wants to know, like, how do I get a direct account, or how do I do this? They didn't explicitly state it. They talked about in the next month a hobby shop program will be getting launched, and then after that probably a breaker program. But they kept reiterating data and how Fanatics has data right now. Fanatics knows that 90 million unique sports fans bought product from them last year.
Yeah.
Now, when I say product, I mean Fanatics product.
Sure.
They know that the market that they can target this many more people than is currently going on. Sorry, I don't know why everything landed funny. And so their goal is, like, do they want to produce more? I mean, I'm sure they do, but I don't think that they're jumping into this to like, oh, there's a cash cow, let's just run the presses and make money. They're jumping into it because they see that companies have not been collecting data, and they think that with data they can more properly balance the supply and demand. They can more properly balance like how much is available versus how much is being chased, and they're putting money into growing the hobby. This was actually post-conference, but I'm sure you heard Michael Rubin on Bill Simmons' podcast this week. If you haven't, listen to it, because he talks for about 40 minutes about sports cards. And he reiterates, when they came in and looked at the company, Topps was spending less than 1% of revenue on marketing.
Yep. Which we all knew, right? We didn't know the number, but we all knew they weren't spending on any money on marketing.
I mean, you could assume from what you saw or didn't see, but like things like, our athletes talking about cards, our influencers talking about cards. And on the podcast, he says, like there's only 5 or 6 influencers in the space, and not talking about hobby influencers like Ty, but talking about like cultural influencers like Logan Paul, Gary V. And he said it not in a way of like, oh, we need more Gary V. He said it in the way of like, no, we need Tom Brady talking about his sports cards. We need Michael Jordan talking about his sports cards. We need Jay-Z talking about his sports cards. There's such a broader audience to reach. And so I think that was a big part of what Luber was reiterating, was like they want hobby shops to share data back and forth with them. and they'll share it back with them too. He used an example of Kellogg's and Target. He's like, Kellogg's shares all their data with Target, and Target shares all their data back with Kellogg's on how many boxes of cereal, who's buying them, etc. And that's how they know how much to make. And he, at one point on day 2, he mentioned like reducing volatility in the hobby is one of their goals. Letting hobby shops and breakers have a clearer idea of what to expect for the year ahead is one of their goals. So all of that really resonated with me. Obviously there was, there was redemption talk, and something that I also feel gets lost. I'm just going to say this because, I can be a positivity guy in the hobby. It's like you post one thing on social media and it gets 20 responses of why not this? Why not this? But then something else I posted, one of the questions at the Q&A was, hey, have you noticed that the redemption scratch offs are terrible lately? And Kevin O'Neill, I believe, or no, it was David Liner,
Okay.
the president of Topps, said, yeah, I've experienced that. I've been on the phone with customer service. We know it's terrible. We're fixing it. That's unacceptable. And nobody comments on that on social media.
Yeah.
Like Topps saying, hey, we made a mistake. We're fixing it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's no fun to talk about the good things, Ivan. You know that. We'll get to that here in a second with the toxicity. But yeah, that's a really good point. When you hear them talking about, hey, we're going to make decisions based on data, do you think they're saying it because they realize like data is the only answer to this, or do you think like hobby shops and consumers are saying, hey, you need to make better decisions on data? Like, why do you think they're saying that? Is it because Fanatics has driven their business based on data and it's worked? I guess I'm trying to figure out, okay, is Fanatics coming in and Luber coming in saying, hey, we're going to be a data-driven company? Why?
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's, keep in mind when we first heard Fanatics getting the licenses, how many people actually thought they wanted to create a manufacturing plant, create a new brand?
For sure.
Do all that. We all knew that they wanted to acquire somebody, right? It made sense. Their thing is spotting inefficiencies, almost like Warren Buffett with Berkshire. It's spotting inefficiencies in companies and erasing the inefficiencies to make them better. Like, you're not going to find just straight arbitrage on the market because everybody's looking every single day for that. Yeah. So I think that the reason for the focus on data is Topps sold 1 million cases in 2021. Who did we sell them to? We don't know. The conjecture by me, emphasis by me. But like, if you ran a business and you saw that, you'd say, wow, huge inefficiency. How do we Facebook target people better? Beyond just cookies of they visited our website. How do we target people to grow this? Well, if we find out specifically that, people jump into this hobby at this point with this money, with this, in these demographics, or, in this way, we can target them, especially because there's also a lot of talk of diversity in the hobby. There was an entire session on that, which was great. It wasn't preaching. It was like, this is one of the ways to grow the hobby. So if Fanatics can better pinpoint, what makes women collectors and better serve growing new women collectors, what a huge market right there, right?
Yep.
Like, what percentage of the U.S. population is women right now? Ty, I expect you to know this off.
54%.
Okay. 54%. You heard it here first. I don't actually know. But so if we look at traditional, what I'd say just from a few different sessions I've been in is maybe 4 to 6% of the hobby right now is women, while 54% of America is women. Well, if we simply double the amount of women collectors through good marketing and through, better acceptance and feeling better on social media and in break rooms and things like that, through learning like Topps provided us at this event, if the hobby grew by 6% this year, how would that impact everybody's bottom line and everybody's enjoyability and everybody's access to product?
Yeah. No, those are great points. And what I love about what they're doing is the data helps them with the inefficiencies on the front end, make better decisions, plan out the supply, demand issues that they're facing now. They could have had that better plan. And on the back end, they realize there is a gap. There is a huge miss with influencers outside of the hobby actually driving interest in what we do.
Mm-hmm.
All that comes together and it creates I think it fills the void of what we all know exists. And so I appreciate them at least identifying it. I'm super glad. Well, I'm sure they're super glad that they were able to acquire Tops so quickly because it allowed them to accelerate a lot of what they're doing as opposed to waiting 2 more years,
Yeah. Which is interesting because that gets back to, I didn't know if we were going to debate what we talked about last time. But I was on the side of the hobby can keep growing, and you were on the side of, but pop reports are going to catch up to it. And I feel like the acquisition process has done a little bit of stunting that growth that I was advocating for, but it's still in the vision. So you win this round, Ty. But
yeah, it's pretty clear that I won that round. The pop reports destroyed prices, but that's
on some
here
things.
nor there. On some things, very true.
I saw Card Ladder on their story just yesterday. I'm going to get all stats are estimates here on Breaker Culture that Ivan shares. Ties are accurate. Ivan's
yes,
are,
of course.
Card Ladder shared something to the effect of like high-end cards are up 34% in the past year. So the ones that are harder to get are up. While if you're sitting on a whole bunch of Lukas and Zions, also let's be honest, how have Luka and Zion been playing? There's always player risk. Nobody wants to talk about that. How's Wander Franco going to play this year? Is he going to play like a $10 rookie card?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I would point to one very clear reason on why high end has accelerated and kind of widened the gap, and that is collectible, rally, fractional ownership. I'd be really curious to know. There's probably an easy way to do this. Let's look at what the prices have done with like singular markets, no fractional ownership, and see if prices on those markets have been stable, or if I don't know. There's probably not a good way of doing that because one affects the other.
Collectible CEO Ezra Levine will be on my show, Go GTS Live, tonight at 6 p.m. This will probably air after that, but make sure you check out Go GTS Live on YouTube for that interview with Ezra Levine of Collectible, where I put Ty's questions to the chief.
That's right. Ezra is a good dude, man. Big fan of Ezra.
I actually need to ask him why my Michael Jordan fractional shares aren't worth more. Like, wait a minute. I thought high end was going up. Why are my Michael Jordan rookie card shares not?
He's like, you idiot. You paid 20% higher than the peak, goofball.
I don't mind. It's fun to be able to say I own $100 of a Michael Jordan rookie card.
I'm with you. I'm at. I was just looking the other day. I have like $4,000 in fractional ownership on Collectible, and it's up, or it's down $500. So it's down like 10%. All right, last 6 months. But
you can call in the show tonight.
I might call in, just to complain about that. You promised. How did they? And this is probably what I tried to reconcile most through social media and the fragments that I was picking up. How are they reconciling supply issues with this constant idea of, hey, we want to grow hobby shops by 10x. We want to add 10x breakers. I kept hearing this 10x multiplier, but we can't get the product and we're trying to solve for that. How do we fix that? What is their kind of solution to that right now? Because I think it's a real problem. I think it's going to continue to be a real problem.
Are you talking about on the manufacturing side or on if it feels like there's a lot of product?
Well, on the manufacturing side, I mean, look, we're entering we're starting seasons now, and half of product releases aren't even hitting the streets yet. With the old season, it's like, okay,
so
what's going on here?
So they did mention supply chain. They talked about one, they didn't comment on any competitors. They only talked Tops. The very deliberate, like they said, like we're not here to talk about that. They did mention some of the 2021 Tops products are stuck in supply chain issues. But Luber actually said, and he has an incredible, the logistics guy that is handling the integration of Fanatics and Tops worked for, I want to say, Standard Oil or National Oil, like, or Steel, ran one of the biggest American, like, basically logistics programs for a few years. So his name is Jeff Gordon, and I got to meet him. Really nice guy, has a great mustache, and is into entertainment cards as well. So that Zero Cool announcement was pretty cool for being Zero Cool. So all that to say, they acknowledged that, and they said from their 20, 30, 40,000 foot view, whichever corporate buzzword we're looking to use, that they know that the supply chain issues will go away. We're not there yet, but they will go away. And I mean, we got Top Series 1 on time this year. So how much, when it comes to baseball, at least, because that's all we can comment on here on their side, like, what are we really missing from 2021? Are you really dying for big league, Ty?
Oh no, look, I'm all for let's cut back on certain products. So if that's what it requires, like if that's what leads to us reducing the number of products, I'm all for it. But it can't be, hey, we can print the snot out of a flagship product, but we can't print these 3 products because, or we have to cut. I mean, I've been allocated 30, 40, 60% on products. That it's not cool, man. I don't know. The whole like, hey, it will just go away. Come on. Look at the world right now. Supply chain issues aren't just going away. But to your point, data solves a lot of these problems.
Data solves a lot of these problems. And I will say the interesting thing to me, and again, this is a point that a lot of people got angry about and wanted to argue, is that David Liner at Top said Series 1 is underproduced for demand this year. And I see you smiling. For those of you that are listening, not Ty hit mute and is trying not to. Of course
they're going to say that. What do you think they're going to say?
Here's the thing. Find me a hobby box for under $100 right now. Find it to me. I'll buy it. Sell me a hobby box for $90, please. Twitter.com/@watchthebreaks.
You could say that about nearly every product.
But flagship, the one that everybody's saying is overproduced, massively overproduced. Find it for me for $90 a box.
That's not a fair ask, though. You're within 2 weeks of release.
Why is
come
that
back in 6 months?
It's so crazy overproduced. Last year's you can't find for 90. You can find it for like 93, 94. This year there's a much bigger chase than any of the products last year. And again, maybe if Wander sucks, you'll see it. But right now, if Wander is what the hobby wants Wander to be, I can see the point of it being quote unquote underproduced due to demand, compared to the fact that Topps wants it available for collectors to be a grow the hobby product.
So you're going to judge how much a product should or shouldn't have been produced based on what the market is pricing it at?
Based on what the market will bear, because we know that there's people out there that got those boxes, distributors, micro distributors, mega hobby shops with huge allocations. Like, if they're not trying to make money on it at $90 a box, which we know they can, right? I mean, I'm not saying I know because I've seen any like what they pay for it, but I'm just like, we all know at one point this gets to my cool product. We're gonna run out of time. We always run out of time. The coolest box in the hobby right now costs less than $100. The best cards in the hobby right now cost less than $100 to the consumer. So flagship costs way less than that. That there's people out there that could lower the prices on it, but aren't having to, because they're still selling enough on a daily basis that they don't have to drop the price to 90. So yes, I do believe that the market tells us what's overproduced and underproduced in a certain measure.
Yeah, see, I would disagree with that, because especially in a world like this where we know Topps is dripping the product out slowly through different channels, right? And controlling the demand, if you will. They know the supply is insane. People run the print runs. I mean, the print runs are just astronomical. They're 3 to 4x our closest flagship product. So to say like that's not overprinted, we could easily go back and argue 18, 19 Prism basketball.
So if the market will bear it, What were you going to say about 1819 Prism basketball?
Well, I mean, we're already seeing like what we thought at the time, and it's completely collapsed in prices. Still very expensive. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong.
exactly. Relative to what it cost. So is it overproduced? Did some
Yeah.
people overpay for it at a certain point? Maybe, but I don't know that it's overproduced. Anybody
Yeah,
I
I
know
don't
is
know.
buying a
I
box
don't
of that
think the
at $100.
barometer of producing, overproducing, or underproducing should be it needs to be sitting on the shelves at all times. Like if it's not sitting on the shelves, it was underproduced. It's like, well, I don't know.
I'm
I don't
just
want
saying
an oversaturated market.
there's something to the argument. And again, when does a market get oversaturated? You know what else they said was overproduced? What's the most overproduced product of all time?
89 Fleer.
Probably 89 Fleer, but 89 Upper Deck. That's what they always say. Oh, they ran the print. They ran the presses. You know, they kept running the presses. They printed more and more of those Griffies than, this
Yeah.
documentary told me, blah, blah, blah. Find me a PSA graded Ken Griffey Jr. 1989 Upper Deck card in an 8 or a 9 for under $100. The
That doesn't
demand,
mean it's under.
but it's because the demand for the Ken Griffey Jr. is that high still today.
The demand for a high grade King Griffey Jr. is still in demand. You
Okay,
can't give away a PSA 7 or 6.
yeah, you can. So $50, $55 is the cheapest. The cheapest PSA graded one on eBay is $50 for a PSA 5. I found one with free shipping.
Buy,
That's
buy, buy.
I'm thinking about it right now. In fact, I will. I've never owned one.
Look at you. You just bought mine. Well done.
You're Wax King Junk. You are Junk Wax King, aren't you? Thank you, eBay seller Junk Wax King. Enjoy
That's
the
right. Well,
promotion on Breaker Culture.
I would love to know your thoughts, whoever's watching. Thank you for watching if you are. How do you judge overprinting, underprinting? What's the barometer of your own that you use? Because yeah, they're going to be using data. They're going to be figuring out how much to print. They're going to be moving those levers. It's going to be very interesting. Let's move into the whole economy. It's a touchy subject. We're not going to get political at all, but it is. I mean, we're talking about crazy, crazy inflation now. Gas prices up 60% year over year. At what point do we start to see this really seep into hobby demand and a decrease in demand?
So I don't know that we do. Call me Hollywood. Call me just drive an electric car and you won't have to worry about gas prices, right? Call me political or the White House. No, I don't think it has anything to do with that. I just think that it's like the lobster boiling in water. I think humans are this way. I've said this about economics for about raising the minimum wage. You raise the minimum wage and it just means that the McDonald's in LA charges $1 more for your 6-piece chicken nuggets. Like they pass it on to the consumer. Cost of living goes up as you raise all of those things. So I think that we just, generally speaking, maybe I'm out of touch. I'm not trying to speak down to anybody if this is really impacting your bottom line or your lifestyle. But I think the people that have been spending money on cards will continue to. The people that haven't will continue not to. And the people that pick up a blaster here or there when they can. I know there's nothing on the shelves. I haven't seen product in 2 years. Well, it's live on eBay right now. It's live on Walmart. It's live on Target. Like you can get cards to rip if you want. Opening day was on tops at $40 for 6 hours, 7 hours the other day. Use Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. You'll find cards. Then it becomes, well, those aren't the cards I want. Okay, well, that's a different story. Maybe they need to print more of the cards you want, but Ty doesn't want them to print more. What are we going to do? I don't know. So I'm not worried about the economy when it comes to cards, mainly because the way I see, I've just never put much stock in the economy. It's why it's not even a political question for me. I mean, Biden, Trump, Obama, they're not setting the gas price. Politics is impacted the most at your local government level. So if you can't tell me who your city council members are, I'm not going to talk politics with you.
Okay, so your assumption is that the average collector then has unlimited discretionary spending,
No,
availability of funds.
not unlimited, but I'm saying that the ratios of their spending continue the same way.
So I have a video coming out later today, and it talks about what a 60% gas price increase actually does to the average American and how that moves in the hobby. Average American has to spend about $1,600 more a year, going from 270 to 420. I know for you in California, it's like, 18 bucks a gallon, but it's 1,500 bucks. It's $110 a month as of today. But what we don't think about is everything else increases as well. Eventually, USPS, FedEx, they have to raise their prices too, right? Supplies becomes more expensive. It's balloons. You don't think that starts to squeeze the amount of money people have to spend in cards because you think the average spender in the hobby doesn't think about that stuff. That's what I'm hearing.
A little bit, combined with multiple challenges to your data and assumptions. And I'm looking forward to the video, and I will share it on social later. Maybe traditionally my gas spend versus last year would go up, but how much more am I ordering at home now in this new environment? How much more am I staying home instead of doing some of the discretionary driving that I would do otherwise? I mean, I know you're driving to the slopes every day, right? Sorry, Ty. That was a little more personal, I feel like, than I meant it to be. It's supposed to be funny and in jest.
It was good. I like it. It's a 4-mile drive for me. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so 4 miles each way, every day, plus the ski lifts, do those run on gas? I don't know. So I see your point to a certain point, but the other thing to consider is, well, are we going from, if I buy these cards, I'm making 4x, to these costs are changing, so now I'm only making 2x, but I'm still profiting. I mean, a ton of people are profiting a ton of money in the card industry. Is it just that margin gets squeezed a little by these additional costs coming up? Just like when the USPS raises their prices every 4 months anyways. Like, well, if we're still making money in cards, is that contingent of the hobby continuing to drive it? Is that offsetting it? So there's so many variables that I don't like. It's like when people ask me in my day job, well, how is war going to impact this? How is this new piece of legislation going to impact the market? And it's like, there's no one thing. Like there's no one thing that does that.
Yeah.
There's so many different variables at all times. The amount of times that I have somebody message me and say, well, wait, after this, I thought that this was going to go this way after this earnings call. Well, yeah, so did everybody else. That's why it went the opposite way. Because if everybody's buying,
Yep.
price does this. If everybody's selling because they think that after the earnings call, you're going to be taking profits. Well, guess what? If everybody starts selling, the price goes down. So yeah, what you think is what everybody thinks. And there's just too many factors for my opinion.
Well, I would say what you think is probably what everybody thinks. What I think is probably not the popular opinion.
Yeah.
In this conversation, I think.
I'll bet you not. I'll bet you in the comments, people are saying, "Oh yeah, absolutely, inflation's killing me. I'm buying less sports cards." I'll bet you everybody will say that.
Okay. Well,
But
I guess
I also,
to your illustration, then the lobster's in there boiling at a certain point. At some point, the lobster dies.
Yeah.
What is the tipping point? And I'm not asking you to answer that question. You don't know. Nobody knows that answer.
Well, this is the same thing as global warming. Ooh, we're getting real political on today's show.
This is not the same thing as global warming.
No, inflation is the same thing as global warming. Is it only going to go one direction? Or are there other market factors? Is 20 months the amount of time that the hobby can take before it boils? Or will inflation reverse in 12 months? Or is 200 months the amount of time the hobby can take and inflation reverse in 100 months? Or is 200 months the amount of time the hobby can take and inflation goes 201 months and the lobster dies? I don't know. It's a good question. Definitely a good question. I just have zero idea because it's so complex. And it's the same thing with global. Like, well, yeah, obviously we can't afford temperatures to raise 1 degree every year, right? The question is, are they raising every year, or are they going up some years? Are they going down some years? Right? It's too complex for me.
Yeah. Maybe it's too complex for me too. But at the end of the day, I know that I have to spend another $1,500 in gas on my car every year. And now it's $150 extra a month.
That's just because skiing is more important to you than cards.
No, not at all. I wish. I wish it was. So I'd be curious to know what people think. I think it actually starts to impact people quicker than we think, especially if gas prices continue to rise. I mean, they're not going to keep rising at these rates. There's no way, right?
Exactly. That's the exact thing. Is like, yeah, okay. I mean, Ty, call me up when gas is $10 a gallon, and yeah, maybe I'll have to reverse my stance. But who can predict $10 a gallon gas, right? So the question is, how long will it rise? How long can we bear? It's complex.
Okay. We'll leave it at that.
Make more money by buying cards and selling them.
If only it was that easy, right? We'll give you a product here in a second. You should go buy. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, we only have a few minutes left. Toxicity in the hobby, specifically on social media. You are the guy on Twitter. I feel like people would point to you as the face of the hobby on Twitter. I've said that for years. I still believe that.
Thank you, Ty.
How do you coach people on just avoiding the toxicity that exists? It bubbles up, it cycles through, people get annoyed. There's just a lot of frustrating, annoying people on Twitter and social media, period. But what's your advice to people to kind of avoid that and not be a toxic force in the hobby?
So my first advice is, hey, it'll happen to all of us. I messaged a friend the other day, one-on-one message, because I was like, man, this is just getting at me. This thing is getting at me.
Yeah.
The Twitter, Facebook. I mean, first off, kudos to you for being on Twitter and not Facebook. You want to talk about a cesspool?
Oh, I bet.
Oh man. Facebook group admins are the worst. You know, it's like, you didn't coin this pick. Coining is dumb. Like, you really think that I'm on here trying to scam you by showing you a card I'm not even selling, but I didn't coin it? My goodness. Get over
I don't even know what that means. You don't
right?
get into it.
Good. It's I think it's like child abuse on a card when you hit it with a coin and you heat up I don't know. Not every joke works. See?
Okay.
See? Like this is so this is what happens. So people make mistakes too. Keep in mind, sometimes it's like the rage or the outrage or the fighting is over something that somebody actually did wrong. You know, do we ever forgive people for doing things wrong? So I think a big part of dealing with what you may perceive as toxicity is, first off, mute me. Twitter, if you're on Twitter, they have a button called mute. Mute accounts, mute words, mute things that you don't want to see. I'm very much a person who likes seeing different opinions. I don't block people for disagreeing with me. I don't block people for calling me out. In fact, most of the times, if I disagree with somebody, I'll give them a follow. But there is a line between that and bullying. There's a line between, disagreeing and being a vampire. If you ever heard that term, like an energy vampire, you suck people's energy.
Yep.
And so for your own mental health, absolutely curate your feed, curate what you want to see. Just like if you go into people say, well, man, I only collect vintage. I hate all this modern stuff. I hate what the hobbies become. No, just go to the vintage tables. There are plenty of them. Follow the vintage collectors. There's plenty of them. I don't like this sport. I'm sick of seeing F1 on my timeline. Great, just mute F1. I've bought tons of stuff that's not F1. I've talked about tons of stuff that's not F1. Just mute it first off. So create your own filter system for toxicity for your own good. Now, where ego comes in, where feelings come in, one, that's a good reminder that we're humans. Like it's good to remember that we're people. I think that anybody in the hobby should be a person. I'm glad, Ty, that you run a podcast and your name and face are out there to like say, yeah, Breaker Culture, I believe in the brand, But like, yeah, and your tie. If I meet you at the National, I can say, here's how much I love your content. Here's how much I love your Bowman pricing ladders. Man, I love those.
Those
I
were
know
good back in the day.
it was a ton of work, but they were so good because they captured moments in time too that you can go back to and reference. Sorry if that's a sad spot at all, that it wasn't something you could keep on doing.
No, it's okay.
I just want you to know how much I appreciate like everything that you've done and built and things. And I can do that because Ty, you're you. But I can also hold you accountable because you're you. Makes a huge difference in the hobby, in a hobby built on trust. So I would say use the mute button. Have friends you can trust. You know, like my DMs are always open, and I say DMs are always private. You know, like I get industry information that I can't share in DMs, and I get, you know, like thoughts on conflict. You know, like people have sent me, like, I don't know how I feel about this. You know, should I do this? Should I not do this? You know, when it comes to like ethical things, even, you know, have some people you can trust because it's easy to get sucked in. You know, it's easy to start cutting corners in this hobby.
Yep.
But as far as like, you know, like, I don't know, what do you mean by toxicity? Like, what's the real trigger here? Those are my general things, but is there something specific I can tell you about?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot
touch?
to be learned about someone like you who has hung around social media and has not let it get to him. Obviously, it does get to you at certain points. I just want to remind people that you can avoid the toxicity that does suck the life out of you and your enjoyment for the hobby. And one of those ways is very practical, and that is filter. That's a great piece of advice. I don't do that enough. Filter out people, filter out things. But I think it requires a little bit of a mindset shift too. Like, it's one thing to point at the toxicity in the hobby and not be the rebuttal to that, you know, be a positive reinforcement, be a light, if you will.
So yeah, here's the problem: is humans are wired one way.
Yeah.
I just saw this great example today. I've always used the traffic in LA example.
Yeah.
Like, you pass 100 nice people, but you don't know because nobody says hi in their car, and then one idiot's trying to turn left, you know, at a no left turn at 9 a.m. because traffic goes that way, and it ruins 100 other people. 100 people going through that intersection each way say, "Man, drivers suck," because of one person's negative action. I read a story just this morning. Didn't know this was going to come up in the podcast. Albert Einstein was teaching, and he went into his class and he wrote on a chalkboard 9 times 1 equals 9, 9 times 2 equals 18, went all the way down the multiplication table, and then wrote 9 times 10 equals 91. Everybody said, wait, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And he said, yes, this is not about doing it right. This was about noticing that no one congratulated me on the 9 times that I got it correct. And the minute there's a mistake, everybody wants to chime in and mention it's a mistake. So keep that in mind when you're doing action, is that you can't get that. You can't mess up if you don't do it, first off. So take action. And second off, you know, be able to filter out that people are wired to point out the negative. It's like I said with the tops thing. You know, people want to jump on the underproduced, overproduced argument and totally ignore all the positive things they said. You know, I'm not saying that means we need to be just positive, but do keep in mind, are you spending 90% of your time calling people out and focusing on that, or are you at least balancing it with, hey, show me your really cool cards, or actually I'm kind of sick of all those show me or this threads, because those are just influencer, like engagement portals. But like, like,
you nailed it.
Like, go find some, here's the thing. Ty, I post some of the weirdest, crappiest cards that I collect, and they get very little engagement on my page. Nobody retweets when I pick up a new LAFC soccer card. Nobody.
Yeah.
And then people say, Ivan, you're just in it for the money. You're just here to flip. And blah. It's like, no, you just don't make my PC pickups go viral,
Yeah.
It goes viral when I hit a kaboom from a Panini box. It doesn't go viral when I add a new Diego Rossi or when I rip an MLS Sapphire and I get 2 LAFC rookies and no big hits. Like, so you have to actually look a little bit for that. Seek the cards you want, seek the content you want, put in that little bit of work, and just like exercise, it'll actually make you feel better.
There you go. Well, for the sake of your algorithms and your social media growth, someone go like his crappy post about F1. Okay. For the love.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. No, but to your point, I remember,
what are you talking about? F1's the biggest hits I got, man.
Oh, that's money card. There you go. Ooh, nice silver. In a marriage class, and this guy was talking about how just to avoid negativity in your marriage, and one of the things he said to couples was that the easiest way to stop being so negative is try to be 4 times more positive. And once you do that, like the mentality shift alone will automatically squeeze out the negativity in your thoughts and your words. You want to say something negative? That's great. Try to come up with 4 more things positive to say before you do that. And the negative thing doesn't seem that cool anymore. Exactly. Same thing in the hobby. I think it's a good reminder that, hey, find somebody you like, tell them how much you like them, find a cool card that maybe no one else likes, like it. Not because of the social media aspect of it, because that will change your own mentality, like you just said.
Yeah, going and letting someone else know that I had the funniest thing. There's a collector a few years back who messaged me and is like, you know what, I don't know, like, it's just so frustrating, man. I posted this thing and nobody liked and engaged with it. And I said, man, I'm sorry. Like, yeah, that's a cool thing. And it was a birth announcement. This was maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, last year I said, dude, I'm here. Whatever you need, whenever you need, if you need encouragement, if you have something cool to show, let me know. And a year and a half later, 2 years later, it was either last year or the end of 2020, had another kid. And that tweet got like 50 retweets, 100 replies, 100 likes. And I sent him a message in the DMs and I said, man, isn't this great? Like, you stuck with it. You stayed positive, and now you've got a lot of friends in the hobby. So,
well, I didn't want to come across as 12-year-old girls talking about getting more likes and stuff. That was not the intent, for sure. So I apologize if that's what people are hearing in it. It's more of, how do you control your own emotions and enjoyment of the hobby?
Here is the thing, though, and
we have 3 minutes.
I want to show off these cards.
Yes.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I want to show off these cards, right? We go to the National with our big briefcases. We want to show them off. So when you say likes, it's not about, like, there is a aspect of the hobby that is social. I'd say a huge aspect. The hobby is the people. It's about the community. I'm on here because I like you, Ty. I have fun talking to you. Any viewers on here in the comments, say hi. Like, I want to talk to you. I want to talk about cards. So I don't think that saying like using likes as a metric is a bad thing, because let's be honest, it's part of why we're here. If you are solely here to collect and not talk to anybody about it, not show it to anybody ever, I kind of want you to reach out to me too, because I want to see what you have, because it's probably super awesome. I want to appreciate it.
Tell me about this product before I let you go. I know you have to get out of here. I'm showing it right now.
The main thing is like, it's less about Scottish Premier League is going to pop off or anything like that. Scottish Premiership Football League, like, it's too complicated anyways. There are some rookies in here that may be cool, but I have a tendency to just buy a little bit of everything to experiment with it. And if you have less than $100 and just want to experience something really unique, and then give Ty and I your feedback. I don't know what Topps did. These were printed in Italy, which was where they also printed the F1 Chrome last year that were just terrible quality control, if you remember.
Yep.
These are Chrome cards, and it is thick and firm. It's almost got like the museum sheen on it. Yes, it's thick and firm right now, Ty.
Okay.
And this was one of the best card quality rips that I have done. I ripped a box of these yesterday, and I'm just stunned. And so the reason that I'm telling people, like, buy it is mainly because it's like, see what see what in today can still be produced in a box that's sold for less than $100.
Yeah.
And like if I had gotten this 2 weeks ago, that would have been my question at the Tops conference for Josh, for Jeff, for Kevin, for David, for every single one of them is how do we get products of this quality? Look at that, no bend in the thing. And I don't know if you can see it, but man, it's like it's not thicker like 75 point, but there's some thickness or firmness to this chrome that I've never seen on another Tops brand. And aside from a very few print lines on some of the parallels, these were the best quality, sharpest corners, best centering that I've seen on a Tops product in years. And it's this little 70-pound British product that's made in Italy. So I'm just talking about it because I want quality products. I want good cards. I got joy from ripping this box, even though I don't know any of the players, and I had to go on Twitter and ask some UK collectors, like, who are the good hits? But it was fun. So that's my hobby in a nutshell.
I like it. It's on Tops UK, which a normal American dude can buy, right?
Yeah, just have to create an account for UK.
Yep. So you can do it. It's available. The link I'll put in the show notes. I'm grabbing 2 boxes right now just because I want to experience this. The greatest product you've ever opened, Ivan. I want to experience it myself.
Just from a quality standpoint. So Ty, hit me up on Twitter after you do and let me know what you think of these cards. Am I crazy? Is my depth perception off?
Well, we know you're crazy.
I know. I shouldn't ask questions I already know the answer to.
Very true. On that note, it's been real. It's been really nice having you, man.
Hey, Ty, it's been fun. Thank you, man. It's like I said, it's an honor that I'm now recurring, and it's a pleasure every single time. So
we always get in a fight, and that's the best part about it. We still love each other. All right, brother. Have a good week.
Exactly. All right, man.
See ya.